Today we're going to be talking about solving multi-step equations and inequalities and building upon our knowledge from yesterday. We have one new vocabulary term, and that is a special case, which you're going to encounter some of. If your variable cancels while solving equations, you must decide if your equation or inequality is actually true or false. If true, then your answer is going to be infinitely many solutions. This basically means that any value I plug in for x will always work. If false, then your answer is going to be no solution. And this basically means it doesn't matter what I plug in for the variable, no number will ever work. We will see a couple of these examples today, so we'll talk more about that when we get to them. Now, another difference between yesterday and today is that we're going to see where we're going to need to simplify one side of an equation before I can actually start moving values by inverse operations. So let's take a look at these first examples. It wants us to solve the following equations or inequalities, and it wants us to leave our answers in exact form. So remember, what we know about exact form is that wants my answers to not be rounded. So we're going to leave answers in fraction form if needed. So looking at example number 1, I want you to constantly focus on simplify the left side of the equal sign, simplify the right side of the equal sign, and then move like we did yesterday. All right, so if I focus on just the left-hand side of the equal sign, you notice that there's some simplifying to do using the distributive property. So I'm going to distribute. Remember, I know this because I cannot actually add x plus 3. So I'm going to distribute that 2 to the parentheses. So 2 times x gives me 2x. 2 times 3 gives me 6. That is fully simplified because I cannot combine them. They are not like terms. I'm going to bring down my equal sign, and I'm going to look to see, can I simplify my right-hand side? And in this case, I cannot. It is already fully simplified, so I bring down my equals 9. Now, if you look at this problem, it looks exactly like what we did yesterday. So the first thing I'm going to do is undo the addition of 6 by doing the inverse. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides of my equal sign. 6 minus 6 gives me 0, so I have 2x equals, and 9 minus 6 is 3. Now I'm going to undo my multiplication of 2 by dividing both sides by 2. You can either leave this as 3 halves, or you can say 1.5. It does not matter which. Number 2, I'm going to fully simplify the left using what I learned earlier this unit. Remember, I'm going to distribute a -1 to the parentheses, and I'm going to drop down that 3. So -1 times y gives me -y, and -1 times -6 gives me +6. I need to take that a step further and simplify by combining like terms. So in this case, I have a 3 and a +6 that I can combine together. So that would leave me -y plus 9. And on the right-hand side, 12 is already simplified, so I'm just going to bring that down. There is nothing left that I can simplify on the left or the right. So now I'm going to do what I have been doing yesterday. I'm going to undo the addition of 9 first by subtracting 9 from both sides. 9 minus 9 gives me 0. So now I have -y equals, and 12 minus 9 is 3. Now this is really important. I can never leave my answer as a negative variable equals. Remember, there is a -1 here. So if that was a -2, I would divide both sides by -2. Since it's a -1, same thing, I'm going to divide by a -1. And ultimately, all this does is flip my sign. Think -1 divided by -1 gives me a +1y, which is the same thing as y. And 3 divided by -1 gives me a -3. So it just flipped both my y and my 3. All right, number 3. There is nothing I can simplify on the left, so I'm just going to bring that down. On the right, I can simplify by distributing. So I'm going to distribute a -1 to the parentheses. -1 times x is -x, and -1 times 4 is -4. There is nothing else I can simplify on the right, so I'm ready to start moving. I'm going to undo the subtraction of 4 first by adding 4 to both sides of the equal sign. -8 plus 4 leaves me -4. Bring down my -x, and -4 plus 4 gives me 0. Remember, I cannot leave an answer as a negative variable. This is the same thing as -1, so I'm going to divide both sides by -1. -4 divided by -1 gives me +4. -1 divided by -1 gives me +1. So this is just x. Number 4, simplify the left first, but there's nothing I can do, so I'm just going to drop it down. On the right, I can distribute that -4. -4 times -6x gives me a +24x, and -4 times -3 gives me a +12. Nothing else I can simplify on the right-hand side. Now I'm ready to start moving. I'm going to undo the addition of 12 by subtracting 12 from both sides. 12 minus 12 is 0. Drop down my 24x, and 12 minus 12 is 0. Undo my multiplication of 24, so I'm going to divide both sides by 24. 0 divided by 24 is 0. 24 divided by 24 is 1. So that goes away, and it's just x equals 0. Number 5, simplify the left-hand side first. Remember, I have to distribute the 3 first to the parentheses, so I'm going to drop that 5 down. 3 times p is 3p, and 3 times -8 gives me -24. Finish combining like terms by combining my whole values, so that will give me 3p, and 5 minus 24 gives me a -19. Nothing else I can simplify there. On the right side, 14 is already simplified, so I just drop it down. I'm ready to undo the subtracting of 19 first, so I'm going to add 19 to both sides. -19 plus 19 is 0, so I'm left with 3p equals 14 plus 19 leaves me 33. And then last step, undo my multiplication of 3 by dividing by 3. So that gives me p must equal 11. Now we're going to start seeing some inequalities. Really, the approach is exactly the same. I'm going to fully simplify the left. For problem number 6, I need to distribute a -1. So -1 times 7 gives me -7. -1 times -4x gives me a +4x. Nothing else I can simplify there. On the right-hand side, nothing I can simplify, so I drop it down. Now I'm ready to start moving. I'm going to undo the -7 first, or the -7 first, by adding 7 to both sides. Remember, I'm never going to look at the sign behind it. This plus sign belongs to the 4x, not the 7. All right, so -7 plus 7 equals 0. That goes away. If that did not happen, that would be a dead giveaway. I made a mistake. I'm going to drop down my 4x, drop down my inequality sign, and 9 plus 7 is giving me 16. Now I'm ready to undo the multiplication of 4, so I'm going to divide both sides by 4. I am left with x on the left-hand side. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Now remember here, I divided by a positive number, so my inequality sign will not flip. It will stay the same. All right, number 7 looks pretty complicated, but it's actually pretty simple if you just stick with the same steps I've been reiterating. So I'm going to simplify the left-hand side of the inequality first. Notice I have some parentheses, so that's a dead giveaway. I'm going to be distributing. So I'm going to take 1/3 and I'm going to multiply it by 3t first. So 1/3 times 3 gives me 1. Remember, 1t is the same thing as just t. Then I'm going to do 1/3 times 9. If I plug that in my calculator, 1/3 times 9 gives me 3. The parentheses go away once I've distributed. All right, then I'm going to distribute a -2/5 to the second parentheses. So if I plug in my calculator, -2/5 times 5, that's going to give me a -2, and I bring down my t. -2/5 times -5. Again, if I plug that in my calculator, that gives me a +2. I'm going to drop down my inequality sign. I'm going to finish simplifying that side by combining like terms. So I have a t and a -2t, which is going to leave me a -1t. Then I'm going to combine my whole values, +3 and +2, and that gives me a +5. Bring down my inequality sign. There's nothing else I can simplify on the left, so I'm good. I'm going to look at the right-hand side. Nothing I can simplify there, so I'm just going to drop it down. Now I'm ready to start moving. I'm going to undo the addition of 5 by subtracting 5 from both sides. 5 minus 5 is 0, so that's going to go away. I have -t. Drop down my inequality sign. 16 minus 5 gives me 11. Now remember, I can't leave it as a -t. That's a -1t, so I'm going to divide both sides by -1. Remember, what that's going to basically do is flip my signs. So -1 divided by -1 gives me +1t. 11 divided by -1 gives me -11. Now remember, I divided by a negative, so I'm going to have to flip that inequality sign. If you think about it, that wasn't too terrible if you focus on those same steps. Simplify the left, simplify the right, then start moving. All right, let's look at number 8. Similar to number 7, except we don't have fractions. I am simplifying the left. I have parentheses, so I'm going to distribute. -4 times m gives me -4m. -4 times -3 gives me +12. I'm going to distribute the +5 to the second parentheses, so 5 times 2m gives me 10m, and 5 times 1 gives me +5. Drop down my inequality sign. Now I'm ready to combine like terms. -4m and +10m leaves me 6m. Combine my whole values, 12 and 5. That's going to give me 17. Drop down my inequality sign. Now there's nothing I can simplify on the right, so I'm just going to drop down my 19. Now I'm ready to start moving. I'm going to undo the addition first by subtracting 17 from both sides. 17 minus 17 gives me 0, so that goes away. I have 6m. Drop down my inequality sign, and 19 minus 17 is 2. Undo my multiplication, so I'm going to divide both sides by 6. I have m, and then 2 divided by 6. I do need to simplify that, but I do not want to turn it to a decimal because I would have to round it. If I plug this in my calculator, I can do alpha y equals, plug in 2/6 and press enter. The calculator will actually simplify it for you, and it will tell you it's 1/3. Remember, right here, I'm dividing by a positive value, so my inequality sign will not flip. All right, number 9. Simplify the left-hand side first. Notice there's no parentheses, so there's no distributing. I'm just going to combine my like terms. I have 3x and negative 3x. Well, notice that that's going to cancel out, and I'm going to have 0 there. And then I have a 5 on the other side. So remember, it's called a special case when the variable completely disappears. So then I look to see, is this a true or false statement? 0 does not equal 5, so this is a false statement. So anytime this happens, I just write my final answer as no solution. Think if it's not true, then it's no solution. And remember what this basically means is that nothing I plug in for x will ever make that statement true. All right, number 10. Same thing, I'm going to simplify the left, no parentheses, so I'm just going to combine like terms. I have negative 7p and positive 7p. That's going to give me a 0. Drop down my minus 8. 0 minus 8 gives me negative 8. Nothing to simplify on the right, so I'm going to drop that negative 8 down. No variable, so I look for if it's a true or false statement. This is a true statement only because of the equal to bar. Negative 8 is not less than negative 8, but it is equal to. So if this didn't have the equal to bar, this would be a false statement. This one is true, so in that case, I'm going to write infinitely many solutions. Which, remember what that means. It means I could plug in anything for that p-value and it will always work. All right, we are down to the last problem, and it's a word problem. It says Tori is working on solving equations and was given the equation below. Her work is shown below the original problem. And once Tori checked the answer key and realized that she got the answer wrong, what mistake did she make? Well, I'm going to basically go through and work this from the beginning. So I'm going to actually do part B first, which is solve the equation the correct way, showing all steps. So I'm going to actually take my equation and I'm going to recopy it down here. And I'm going to say 3 minus 2 times x plus 1 is equal to 12. I'm going to fully simplify the left first. I see parentheses, so that tells me I have to distribute. I'm going to drop that 3 down, and I'm going to distribute that negative 2. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. I'm going to combine my like terms. 3 and negative 2 can combine together, so that gives me negative 2x plus 1. Fully simplify the right, it's already simplified, so I drop it down. Now I'm ready to start moving. I'm going to do the inverse of adding 1, which is subtract 1. 1 minus 1 is 0, goes away. I have negative 2x. 12 minus 1 is 11. Do the inverse of the multiplication, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. Remember, it wants my answer in exact form, so I'm going to leave it as either a fraction or a unrounded decimal. So you could leave it as negative 11 halves, or if you want to say that's negative 5.5. So now that we've done that, I'm going to go back up to the work that Tori did, and I'm going to compare it. So the first thing that I did was distribute my negative 2. And if you notice, the first thing that Tori did was 3 minus 2 to get that 1. So she subtracted instead of distributing the negative 2. And remember, you can't do the 3 minus 2 because that would be subtraction before you multiply. Remember, when we simplify expressions, multiplication comes before subtracting.